Story of Wall Street, Money Never Sleeps picks up after the infamous corporate raider Gordon Gekko, Michael Douglas, is released from prison after serving an 8-year sentence for insider trading and securities fraud. Gekko, once one of the most powerful and feared figures on Wall Street, is now alone with no friends or family waiting for him when he's released. He picks up his belongings from the clerk, including a check for his time in prison and a train ticket, signaling his return to the world of high finance. 7 years later, in 2008, Jake Moore, Shia LaBeouf, a promising young trader at Keller Zabel Investments, wakes up to his girlfriend Winnie, Carey Mulligan, kissing him. She's heading to Washington for the weekend, and after a brief conversation, she heads off to the airport. Jake turns on the TV, where Gekko is being interviewed on a talk show, promoting his new book, Is Greed Good? Gekko reflects on his past, comparing the reckless ambition of Wall Street to the time he spent in prison. His reinvention as an author and financial lecturer paints a picture of someone trying to profit from the very system he once exploited. At the mention of Gekko, Winnie becomes agitated, telling Jake to turn off the TV. She's clearly uncomfortable with the idea of her estranged father being in the public eye again. Jake dismisses it, and when he drops her off at the airport, he receives a call from his mentor, Louis Zabel, Frank Langella, who is concerned about the market's instability. Zabel wants Jake to raise more money for their firm, and Jake reassures him that he will. But there's more going on behind the scenes than Jake realizes. Jake works at Keller Zabel Investments, a major Wall Street firm, and is soon caught in a meeting discussing the company's shaky financial position. Zabel, despite their firm's instability, rewards Jake with a hefty $1.5 million bonus. Zabel's cryptic remarks about the company's financial situation leave Jake confused and uneasy. The bonus seems strange, especially in the midst of financial chaos. When Jake presses Zabel about the company's numbers, Zabel brushes it off, telling Jake to enjoy the money and his beautiful girlfriend. Feeling uncertain but grateful, Jake heads to a jewelry store to buy an engagement ring for Winnie. After celebrating with a drink, Jake's friend expresses skepticism about the market and warns Jake about his overconfidence in Zabel's firm. Jake brushes off his concerns, reassuring himself that everything will work out. But the next day, the stock market crashes, and Keller Zabel Investments is plunged into chaos. The company's stock price plummets, and Jake holds onto his shares, hoping things will turn around. His friend urges him to sell, but Jake refuses, convinced that the price will go back up. Jake's optimism quickly turns to despair when he can't find Zabel in the office. He tracks him down at the park, where Zabel, disheveled and disengaged, walks his wife's dog. Zabel is cryptic about the company's future, and when Jake presses him, Zabel reveals that the firm's collapse is imminent. The financial markets are in freefall, and Zabel is resigned to the fact that their company won't survive. Zabel attempts to negotiate a bailout from the Federal Reserve, but is met with hostility from Bretton James, Josh Brolin, a ruthless competitor who sees an opportunity to destroy Keller Zabel Investments. James offers to buy the firm's stock for just $2 per share, far below its actual value, and Zabel, though humiliated, refuses. James persists, and after a tense back and forth, Zabel settles on $4 per share, but James's brutal tactics make it clear that the firm is doomed. As Zabel contemplates the end of his career, he takes his own life, devastated by the collapse of the firm he built. Jake is left in shock, realizing that the mentor he looked up to has been consumed by the very system they both worked for. Meanwhile, Jake's relationship with Winnie becomes strained, and he proposes to her, hoping that they can build a future together despite the chaos around them. She accepts, but Jake's inner turmoil is far from over. Jake attends a financial conference where Gordon Gekko delivers a speech on the stock market. The speech feels like a warning, powerful, calculated, and hypnotic, just like the voice of a predator on Wall Street. After the conference, Jake approaches Gekko, introducing himself and mentioning his upcoming marriage to Winnie. Gekko, always a strategist, offers Jake 10 minutes of his time, and they engage in a conversation that reveals much about Gekko's estranged relationship with his daughter. Winnie has refused to speak to her father for years, blaming him for her brother, Rudy's suicide. During their conversation, Jake notices an old photograph of Winnie as a child. which Gecko offers to trade for a recent photo of Winnie. Jake strikes a deal with Gecko. He will help Gecko reconnect with his daughter if Gecko helps him take down Breton James. Gecko agrees, always calculating, but warns Jake that every deal comes with a price. As Jake digs deeper into James's financial dealings, he uncovers a crucial piece of information. James and his firm manipulated false reports about an African oil rig being nationalized, causing panic and a steep drop in stock values. To expose James, Jake orchestrates a financial attack that causes the company to lose $120 million, hoping to bring James to justice. In the meantime, Jake and Winnie visit Jake's mother, Sylvia, who is struggling with her own financial troubles. Sylvia asks Jake for $200,000 to save her properties, but Jake hesitates before giving her the money, knowing that her reckless decisions have contributed to her downfall. Later, Jake receives a meeting request from Breton James, who offers him a job at his firm. James admires Jake's ambition and wants him on his team, but Jake knows that accepting the offer would mean betraying his values. Despite his reservations, Jake agrees to the job, understanding that it's part of his plan to take James down from within. As Jake continues his professional climb, he learns more about James's role in the financial crisis. James has been actively working against the fusion energy project Jake has been championing, not because it wouldn't work, but because it threatens the oil industry's dominance. Furious at James's greed, Jake decides to quit his job and distance himself from the corrupt world of high finance. Desperate for a way out, Jake turns to Gecko once more. Gecko offers Jake a solution. Winnie has a $100 million trust fund sitting in a Swiss bank account, set up for her when she was a child. Gecko suggests that Jake convince Winnie to release the funds, promising that it will secure their future. Reluctantly, Jake reaches out to Winnie, and after some discussion, she agrees to release the money. But when Jake's mother Sylvia once again begs him for money, Jake refuses to bail her out. He gives her $30,000 and tells her to stop relying on him to fix her financial mistakes. As the financial situation grows more dire, Jake realizes that something is wrong with Gecko's plan. The money never arrives, and when Jake rushes to Gecko's apartment, he finds it empty. Gecko has double-crossed him, and Jake realizes that Gecko never changed. He manipulated the situation to his advantage, leaving Jake and Winnie betrayed. Devastated, Jake confesses everything to Winnie, admitting that he had been meeting with Gecko behind her back, trying to rebuild his relationship with her father. Winnie calls off their engagement, heartbroken and unable to trust Jake anymore. Jake, consumed by guilt, follows Gecko to London, hoping to confront him. When he finds Gecko, he offers him a deal. If Gecko returns the stolen $100 million to Winnie, Jake will give him something far more valuable: a chance to be part of his unborn son's life. Gecko seems moved for a moment, but then hardens, refusing to give up the money. For him, the game is everything. Jake returns to New York and exposes the entire scheme, using the information he gathered to take down James and his financial empire. James is publicly disgraced, and Gecko, now a billionaire once again, manages to rebuild his empire. But even as Gecko wins, he remains a shadow of the man he once was, still driven by the need to be on top. Months later, Jake and Winnie, now expecting a child, attend their son's first birthday party. Gecko, watching from a distance, has become a father and a grandfather, though his role in the family remains uncertain. The game is never over, and for some, the pursuit of wealth and power is a never-ending cycle. But for Jake, the birth of his son represents a new chapter, one where the stakes aren't about money, but about the future he hopes to build. If you like recap movies, then subscribe Recaps You for more videos.